Okay, let's unpack this a bit.
Yeah.
That feeling when your laptop, the one that used to be so fast,
Yeah.
suddenly feels like it's swimming through treacle, battery dies halfway through your commute.
Oh, definitely.
And thinking about upgrading, say, the RAM or something, forget about it. Sound familiar?
Uh-huh.
Well, if you're trying to get a handle on the tech world without, like, needing an advanced degree, you're probably in the right spot.
And speaking of the tech world, there's this interesting company, Framework. They're American, make computers.
Like HP or Dell?
Sort of, yeah, in that space, but their whole mission is different. They started up, January 2019, and their big thing is this right to repair idea.
Right to repair. Yeah, you hear that phrase more and more. And Frameworks really built their whole identity around, it seems.
Absolutely.
So today, we're going to dig into that. We saw this discussion on a tech YouTube channel, and it got us thinking about Framework's whole approach to laptops, their designs, and what these new announcements actually mean for us, the people using them day to day.
It does make you think back, doesn't it? Remember older laptops? Early 2000s, maybe even some from the 90s.
Oh yeah, the tanks.
Exactly. They just felt tougher, more permanent somehow, like you could actually fix them if something went wrong. That resilience, it feels kind of lost now.
Totally. The old ThinkPads, right?
Yeah.
Legendary. But then things shifted, didn't they? Everything got super thin, super sleek.
And often that came at a cost. Less durable, definitely less repairable.
Yeah, so what are the real pain points that create? I mean, for me, it's knowing a laptop might only last, 3, maybe 5 years if you're lucky?
And that's being generous sometimes. Plus, think about specifics replacing a dead battery. Sometimes it's ridiculously hard or just costs too much to be worth it.
Right.
And then you've got components soldered straight onto the main board. A tiny fault can mean the whole thing's basically toast or needs a super expensive repair.
So you end up with this pile of e-waste from machines that should still have life left in them.
Precisely. It's a frustrating cycle.
And, often it's not even the core processors slowing things down, is it?
Not at all. Sometimes it's just dust clogging up the fan, making it overheat and throttle performance.
Or the SSD gets completely full. Simple things.
And simple things, exactly. And those are the kinds of issues Framework seems to be tackling head-on with designs that are meant to be opened up, meant to be maintained.
So this right to repair thing and upgradability, that's like their core philosophy.
That's the heart of it, yeah. It's a real contrast to how most of the industry operates now, where things are so sealed up and honestly kind of designed against being repaired by the user.
Okay, so practically speaking, what does that look like for someone buying a Framework? How does repairable and upgradable actually translate?
Well, a great example is the ports, the USB HDMI sockets.
Yeah.
Instead of being stuck with whatever the manufacturer decided, Framework lets you choose. You get these little modules.
Modules?
Yeah, expansion cards. So say you do stock trading and need 2 monitors. You can slot in 2 HDMI or DisplayPort cards.
Okay, that's neat.
Or maybe you move lots of data, need fast external SSDs, pop in multiple USB-C cards. It's about making the laptop fit your needs, not the other way around.
And you can change them later if your needs change.
Exactly. And they sell all these parts individually if one breaks or if you just want to switch things up.
Are they expensive, these parts?
There may be a little bit more than the absolute base cost of a non-replaceable part, sure, but not like the crazy prices some companies charge for proprietary replacements. The point is, you can replace just the broken port. You don't need a whole new motherboard, which saves a ton of money and hassle.
Right, avoids that huge repair bill. And it's not just fixing, it's upgrading too, you said. Yeah. Future-proofing.
Definitely. Their first model, the Laptop 13, launched July 2021. Big promise then was upgradability.
Which, let's be honest, sounds good, but lots of companies promise things.
Fair point. There was definitely some skepticism. But Framework actually delivered. People who bought that 2021 laptop, they can upgrade the main board.
The whole main board with the CPU.
Yep. They started with 11th gen Intel, but now you can drop in newer Intel chips, even AMD Ryzen options.
Wow. Okay, so you keep the chassis, the screen, everything else, just swap the core.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Think about that. Normally, a new generation CPU means buying a whole new laptop. Here, you upgrade the core component, extend the life of your machine significantly, saves money, reduces waste.
So what do you do with the old mainboard then? Is it just junk?
No, they thought of that too. They actually have solutions. There's an official case they made with Cooler Master.
Cooler Master. The PC case people.
Yeah. So you can put your old mainboard in that case and basically have a little mini PC.
Yeah.
And they've also released 3D printable designs, open source, so the community can make their own cases. Gives the old hardware a second life for other projects.
That's really cool. So it's not just the core components.
No, they listened to feedback. People weren't thrilled with the first webcam, maybe, or wanted a better screen. They've released upgraded display modules, better webcam modules.
And you can just buy that specific module and swap it in.
Yep. Easy install. It's like this ongoing improvement driven by what the users actually want.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. They just announced something new, the Framework Laptop 12. That sounds like maybe a smaller version. Or cheaper.
It seems aimed more at affordability, yeah. And durability, too, interestingly.
Yeah.
They're shooting for under $1,000, which puts it right in that busy mid-range market. But the angle isn't just specs for the price.
It's the repairability again.
Exactly. The idea is, even if the specs are similar to another $900 laptop, the Framework 12 should last longer because you can fix it, maybe upgrade parts down the line. More durable build, too.
Purple, how? Who are they aiming this at?
Seems like schools, colleges, places where laptops might get, let's say, treated a bit rougher.
Ah, makes sense. So what makes it more durable?
Well, they've focused on making the common failure points easy to replace: battery, keyboard, those port modules again. Plus, the chassis itself uses tougher materials like this TPU, plastic sort of rubbery, over-molded on the edges for better bump protection.
Like a built-in bumper case?
Kind of, yeah. And a neat little feature for schools. The ports can be locked.
Locked. Why?
So students don't accidentally yank out a USB drive during class, or maybe to prevent removal of specific peripherals in a lab setting. It's a small detail, but shows they're thinking about that educational environment.
Addressing those little frustrations, yeah. I heard something about a folding touchscreen, too, with a stylus.
Again, seems like direct feedback from students, educators needing that tablet-like functionality sometimes.
Okay, so affordable, durable. How are they hitting that sub-$1,000 price without making it super slow? What's the catch?
Well, the main thing seems to be the processor choice. They're not using the absolute bleeding-edge chips.
Okay.
They're using slightly older, but still very capable Intel CPUs. Importantly, they're not using those really low-power, cheap N-series chips you sometimes find in budget laptops that struggle with multitasking.
Ah, right. So like maybe last-gen Core i5 or something similar.
Yeah. They mentioned fine-tuned 13th gen Intel specifically, so still quite modern, just maybe not the top-tier i7s or i9s. Finding that sweet spot between cost and performance.
Smart. And they're new colors, too.
Yeah. Multiple chassis colors, and you can even mix and match the port module colors. A bit of personalization, which is nice.
You don't usually get that choice unless you're spending way more.
True. Though it's worth mentioning availability might be limited initially, and getting it in some regions like, say, India might be tricky because of costs and import tariffs right now.
Fair enough. Okay, so that's the laptops. What of this Framework desktop? That sounds different. Is it like a regular tower PC?
Yeah, it's not quite what you'd picture as a standard desktop tower. It's more like a really powerful, customizable mini PC.
Okay.
And how it came about is interesting. It's really driven by this AMD chip, the Ryzen AI Max.
Ryzen AI Max.
Yeah.
Okay, heard of Ryzen. What's the AI Max part?
It's an SoC system on a chip. So it combines the CPU, the graphics, memory controller, AI processing bits all onto one piece of silicon, designed for laptops, actually.
But it's ending up in a desktop. Why?
Well, the thing is, this chip is powerful, like really powerful, and power means heat. It has a TDP, thermal design power, of around 100 watts.
That's a lot for a laptop chip, isn't it?
It is. It was proving pretty challenging to cool effectively in a typical thin laptop chassis without serious performance throttling.
Ah, okay. So AMD made this cool chip, but it was too hot for most laptops.
Kind of, yeah. Or at least too demanding for the kind of designs most manufacturers aim for. So Framework saw an opportunity.
To build something around the chip.
Exactly. Build a small desktop form factor that could handle the power and cooling needed. But the really special thing about this chip is the graphics and memory setup.
Go on.
It has a very strong integrated GPU, but the kicker is the potential for unified memory, up to 128 gigabytes.
128 gigs of VRAM on an integrated GPU.
Unified memory, yeah. Shared between the CPU and GPU like Apple's M-series chips. And it's fast, 8,000 megahertz, with a really wide 256-bit bus. That bus width is key for bandwidth.
Okay, my head's spinning slightly. 128 GB VRAM is insane. High-end graphics cards have, what, 24 GB? Maybe 48 GB for the pro stuff?
Exactly. So who needs that much VRAM? Well, think about local AI development. Running large language models or machine learning tasks right on your Windows machine.
Without needing a supercomputer or cloud access?
Right. Getting anywhere near that amount of VRAM with traditional dedicated GPUs would cost an absolute fortune if it's even possible for consumers.
So AI researchers, developers.
Or even Linux users doing heavy coding or simulations, imagine allocating, say, 100 GB just for the GPU tasks.
Wow.
And even for gaming, while maybe overkill now, consoles like the PS5 use 16 GB of unified memory. As games get more demanding, having that much headroom could make it surprisingly future-proof.
So this framework desktop isn't really for everyday users. It's for these specific high VRAM needs, computer science students, AI folks.
That seems to be the target, yeah. It's a way to get access to that specific AMD chip's unique capability. It's maybe less repairable in the tiny details than their laptops, but core things like the power supply, the fan, those are standard replaceable parts.
Still some repairability then.
Oh, yeah. And because the motherboard uses a standard ITX form factor, people could potentially even use these boards in small server clusters for training models or other tasks.
Clever. So it's basically packaging this powerhouse AMD chip that didn't quite fit laptops.
Pretty much sums it up, yeah.
Okay, so stepping back. Framework. Interesting company, cool ideas. What's the overall assessment? Any downsides we should be aware of?
Well, you got to remember, they're still small compared to the giants like Dell, HP, Lenovo. They're not a tier 1 maker.
Right, so maybe not the same economies of scale.
Exactly, which means while they focus on value through longevity and repair, you can probably find a laptop with similar raw specs for less money upfront from a bigger brand.
But that cheaper one might be a landfill in 3 years.
That's the trade-off, yeah. You're paying a bit more for the framework design philosophy, the modularity, the support longevity.
What about component choice? Especially graphics. The YouTube video mentioned wanting newer GPUs in the laptops.
That's a fair point. Their component refresh cycle, especially for things like the dedicated GPU modules, does seem a bit slower. Right now, the top option is an AMD Radeon RX 7700S.
Which is decent, but maybe not cutting edge.
Right. People always want the latest and greatest, like maybe an NVIDIA option or a newer AMD card. But for a smaller company sourcing those parts, validating them, ensuring compatibility with the modular system, it takes time and resources.
Yeah, managing all those different modules must be complex.
It is. And maybe, just maybe, the big GPU makers aren't super keen on enabling this kind of user upgradable system either. It kind of disrupts their usual market flow.
Interesting thought. So there are growing pains, limitations due to their size.
For sure, they're not perfect, but the commitment to repair, to upgrades, to actually listening to users, that feels genuinely different and I think really positive for the whole PC market.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up then. What are the main things you, the listener, should take away from our deep dive into framework today?
I think the big ones are, first, their absolute focus on right to repair. It's not just marketing talk. Second, the real proven upgradability of their laptops. You can keep them relevant longer.
Right.
Third, the new laptop 12, bringing that repairability to a more affordable, durable format, especially thinking about schools. And fourth, this unique framework desktop, leveraging that high VRAM AMD chip for specialized tasks like AI.
So if you're tired of that feeling that your tech is designed to die,
Yeah.
Framework offers a pretty compelling alternative. It puts
Yeah.
more power back in your hands, challenges that throwaway culture. It feels more sustainable, more user-focused.
Which kind of leads to a final thought to chew on, maybe. You know, as devices get more and more integrated, more sealed off, harder to fix, is Framework's way the actual future? Or are we stuck with planned obsolescence?
Yeah, well, it just keeps dominating. It makes you think about the real cost, not just money, but environmental too, of the tech we buy.
Definitely food for thought.
So we'll leave you with a question. If you had a modular laptop like a Framework, what part would you prioritize upgrading first?
Of her.
Or maybe think bigger. What other industry desperately needs a right to repair revolution? Something to ponder. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.